Hey, my friend, if you have a dream, if you have a desire to do great things in this life and impact people on a really deep level and see that throughout your whole entire life experience, but you're holding on to something, you're holding on to these limiting beliefs, these ideas that have conjured up in your mind that aren't even from you, I want to encourage you today to recognize what your limiting beliefs are, to breathe, and to take a step powerfully through those. We're going to turn your fear into fuel on this week's Mindset Monday. I'm Drew Canoli. Remember, we're in this together. Let's do this. All right, my friend. So what's limiting you? There's a series of limiting beliefs that many people have. Growing up, I had a ton of these limiting beliefs. And I really had to discover a process that actually worked for me to get rid of these limiting beliefs. And I have a 3-step process I'm going to show you in a second. But first, let's talk about what some of these limiting beliefs are and how they're holding you back. So the feeling of not being enough is one of them. The feeling of not having enough. Having to work hard for money. Not deserving success. Maybe one of them is, I'm not the chosen one, I'm not lucky, I don't deserve this. Those types of thoughts run through your mind all the time and hold you back from becoming all that you know you can be. So step number 1 in eliminating limiting beliefs is to not agree with that limiting belief, right? So when you say a limiting belief to somebody in a situation, you often find yourself, you can hear it. You're like, oh, was that really the strongest person I could be? Was that really the most light that I could emit in a conversation and be the most inspiring? And when you hear that limiting belief, what I want you to do is not acknowledge it as being a part of you anymore and start to change the way that you see yourself. Because when you say that limiting belief and you actually acknowledge it as being part of you, that limiting belief becomes real. And the more you enforce it in your mind, the more the neurons in your brain fire back and forth and have to create that a present reality in your life. It's not part of you, right? These limiting beliefs aren't. And here's why. These limiting beliefs that you have about you are probably stemming from something that happened in your past. It's somebody that said something to you that formed a kink in your consciousness that now all of a sudden you believe you're that person. So you've went your whole entire life with that limiting belief. It's actually predetermined the things that you really want in life that maybe you're not getting, you're not firing on all cylinders because of that limiting belief. So we have to drop it, right? It's like a bag of bricks. You carry it around with you, and all the limiting beliefs, you put another brick in there. Eventually that bag's gonna break, or it's gonna leave you crippled, walking around with all this extra garbage that you have to carry around with you. How much easier is it to just let the bag go? Stand upright and know that those limiting beliefs aren't a part of your life anymore. All right, the second one is what I like to call logical conclusion. And it's part of the Widenity process, right? So if you've seen the Widenity video, you know what we're talking about. It's creating your why and your identity and bridging the gap. So what do you want your identity to be and why? Why do you want it? So the logical conclusion essentially is coming up with a logical way to define something that'll happen if you hold on to this limiting belief. So if your limiting belief is, I don't deserve this, right? Fast forward 5, 10, 15, 20 years out from now, what does that look like in your life? How does that show up? If you're carrying around this brick that says, I don't deserve this, what does it do in your relationships? Well, maybe you settle with somebody that it's not a happy relationship. It's not 100% firing on all cylinders, right? Maybe you get a job that it's okay, it pays your bills and you feel safe, you have insurance and all these other things, but it's not your dream, it's not your passion, it's not your desire, and you're not determined to go into work every day and do this thing because that limiting belief said that you don't deserve it. So you have to go to the logical conclusion. And once you get that conclusion, that's power. Because that conclusion can change, right? Now what would happen if the limiting belief became, I am deserving, I am infinite, I'm a creator, I understand the ability to bring things into my experience and create whatever I want to create. How much more empowering is that, right? What does that look like 10 years from now? So every single step along the way, if you were to timeline it out, fast forward, you can see the events and the circumstances of both of those and then choose which one's going to bring you to a higher level. And focus on that, because all those cobwebs, all of that discord from the past and those limiting beliefs have to go. And number 3 is to test your barriers. And I want to tell you a personal story about this. 3 years ago when I started Fit Life TV, I was looking for ways to fund Fit Life. It was awesome making videos, and that was one of my goals, was to make these motivational, inspirational, educational videos. And I didn't know how to make money doing it, right? So I thought of ways to use my services. I had a personal transformation. I went from over 20% body fat down to sub 7%, got in insane shape, started posting online, and I got a phone call from my very first high-end coaching student, Kent Clothier. He calls me up and he's like, Drew, I want to do exactly what you've done. Fly out to my house. So I flew out to Kent's house. I stayed with him for 2 days, transformed him, Seema, whole entire family, showed them how to juice, went into their company, showed their employees what to do, how to be healthy, all these other things that I had learned over the determined and dedication that I spent to become a higher version of myself. And I didn't know what to charge, right? So I'm gonna be a little vulnerable with you here, my friend. And essentially, at the time I spent 2 days, I'm like, well, what does a personal trainer make? Usually $100 or less an hour. So I'm like, I'm $150 an hour, right? So I charged $3,000 for 2 days. And I did that for Kent and Seema. And then I realized that the results that they were getting were worth a whole lot more than that. We were changing people's lives. I mean, they were literally becoming more healthy. Their mindsets were more focused. They were doing better in business. So I'm like, I gotta raise my prices. The problem was I was holding on to all these limiting beliefs from the past. I'm from Michigan, right? Nobody in the right mind would ever think to charge somebody $10,000 for a day to perform coaching. I mean, that just was unheard of. So what I had to do was I had to push myself past that barrier. I had to push myself past that limit. So whatever your limitation is, if it's money, if it's you don't deserve this, you have to figure out creative ways to push past that. So what I did was simple. I declared that I was worthy. I did a lot of subconscious work. I went to the logical conclusion of only charging $3,000 for these high-end coaching students when I'm flying across the country, spending time with them, and what that would do for me in 5-10 years and the impact that I wanted to make on this planet. And I'm like, I'm not gonna get there quick enough. I'm not gonna be able to fund the different things that I wanna do if I continue to play at a small game, right? So effective immediately, I raised my coaching to 10 grand. And what really helped me was the story of Pablo Picasso, and maybe you've heard me tell this in another video that I've done for you, where Pablo was in a coffee shop and this little girl came up to him and she said, hey Pablo, will you paint on this napkin for me? And he did it, and he just drew it. It took like 2.5 minutes. And at the end of it, he's like, all right, that's $2,400. And the little girl was like, what? And then the mom was there too, and she was upset. She's like, Pablo, it was 2.5 minutes. And he simply said, he goes, all of the education, all the resources, all the tools, all the money that I've invested in my craft to get to this certain level is what you're not seeing. So although it took me 2.5 minutes to create this beautiful napkin for your daughter, all that time spent, all that investing in myself is where the money is. So you have something inside of you that you've invested in. We all do. That makes you unique, that makes you unbelievable. And when you can use that for good and impact people, then those limitations of not deserving it, not having enough money, the financial limitations start to go away. So remember that. You have this amazing gift. You have this inspiration inside of you that the world needs, now more than ever. Because the more you put in, the more light that you emit, the more people are free to do that. And that's the cool thing about this. So my friend, now it's time to actually take action, turn your fear into fuel, and get out there and make it happen. Get rid of these limiting beliefs. I want you to leave a comment below. Tell me what your limiting belief is, and then number 2, how you're gonna break past it. Together, we can do this. As always, I'm Drew Canoli. Remember, we're in this together, and I'll see you next week.